Furthermore, the freedom of press is pretty free and open. You always see in these movies, they talk about classified information and top secret information. And although these, statuses do exist, this top secret and classified information, it doesn't really pertain to the media or the press because of the freedom of press. So if a newspaper or TV station were to get a hold of information, even if the government has deemed it top secret, they are able to release this information. This is due to part of the First Amendment they call no prior restraint. Basically, the government cannot keep an article from being released. So, if the government had knowledge that there were aliens out there and an attack was imminent, and they said that this was top secret, if the newspapers got a hold of it, they could print it no matter what, because of this prior restraint portion of the Constitution. The prior restraint clause goes so far to say that newspapers can reveal this information, and if it's true, they don't even have to reveal the source that gave them the information in order to protect whatever the leak is in the government. This is known as a shield law, a law basically saying that newspapers and media do not have to say who actually gave them the classified or top secret information. In our freedom of assembly, we also need to remember that this protects the right for any group to assemble, so long as they're not committing some sort of other crime, of course. This includes a variety of unpopular groups, such as the Ku Klux Klan, or the neo-Nazis, or the Communist Party. All these organizations are allowed to assemble due to the First Amendment, even if we don't particularly like them. Also, underneath the freedom of petition, there is no limit to what Congress can accept as a petition, and this is called the no gag rule. The gag rule was originally implemented back during the Civil War when they kept receiving petition after petition asking Congress to abolish slavery. And every time this issue came up, it was so heated that Congress could get nothing else accomplished as they debated slavery. So for a time, they put a gag rule on slavery, saying that they would not receive any petitions involving it. Well, this was ruled as unconstitutional, and eventually Congress had to start receiving these petitions and start really addressing this issue of abolishing slavery. The freedom of religion actually contains two distinct parts. The first being the Free Expression Clause, and the other being the Establishment Clause. The Free Expression Clause basically says that people have the right to practice their religion however they wish. Keep in mind some of the first people who moved to America were the Pilgrims, who were kind of persecuted in England and were seeking religious freedom. So that's part of that. The other aspect of this is the Establishment Clause, which says that the government will not actively try to establish or promote one religion over the others. Keep in mind, back in England, they had the Church of England, and so the government supported one central religion, and freedom of religion is supposed to prevent this in the United States. Now, this idea of freedom of expression and the Establishment Clause sometimes walks a thin line. You have incidents where the president says, "God bless America," and he can do that because he has the Expression Clause. We had the Pledge of Allegiance that says, one nation under God. Obviously for some people this could be considered as offensive because, their religion doesn't call God God, or doesn't have a God, or has many gods. So these two ideas sometimes almost come in contradiction with one another. Now, how we can try to avoid this is the idea that some people believe that there should be this complete separation between church and state, and that in all instances we should try to avoid any sort of involvement. This idea comes from Thomas Jefferson. He actually said that there should be this distinct wall separating church and state. Now, surprising to some people, this term, the separation of church and state, is not found in the Constitution or in the First Amendment. It was penned by Jefferson, but this was a way that the Supreme Court decided, the government could allow people to express themselves freely, but on the same time, they aren't promoting one religion over the other. Now, one area where this idea of separation in church and state comes up a lot is in schools. Schools are a government institution, and so, they're expected to practice this separation of church and state, the best possible. One case that comes involved here is the Lemon case, which is where a school wanted to, a religious school wanted to receive government funding for some of their programs. And some people said that this would, be violating the Establishment Clause. Well, the Supreme Court ruled that it was a violation of the Establishment Clause. This religious school could not get funding from the government because they were promoting a very Christian religion. So the Lemon test basically says for any sort of law that involves religion, it must first have a secular purpose, then not promote any religion unfairly, and third, should keep the government out of any unfair entanglement with religion. What involves entanglement is sort of subjective and up to judges, but the idea is the government should try to stay as hands-free from religion as possible, which is why when you look at schools, we try to avoid things like having a Christmas concert. It's not a Christmas concert, it's a winter concert, and we shouldn't say like, Merry Christmas, your teachers maybe shouldn't say that, they should say like season's greetings or something along those lines. Now, in this idea of trying to keep a separation, schools sometimes almost play it too safe, and this brings up the issue of where does prayer stand in schools? A lot of people say that, you can't pray in school, and this is a controversy. Well, that's not exactly the case, okay? But let's look at some examples. Some people wanted to put the 10 Commandments up in classrooms, and in some cases they wanted to put them up in courthouses in different states around the country. Well, this was viewed as unfairly breaking the Establishment Clause because, the 10 Commandments don't pertain to every religion, so putting these huge 10 Commandments on the wall was considered unfair. Okay, looking at prayer, if I were to come in and say, what, kids, we need a lot of help on this Constitution test, and I think we need a lot of help, and when I need help, I turn to my friend Jesus, so let us bow down and pray, okay? That would not be protected because I, being a government employee, would be putting my religion off on my students and forcing it upon you, so that would be a violation of the Establishment Clause, Now, does that mean organizations cannot pray? Of course not. If students want to pray on their own, at lunch, in the hallway, if organizations even want to form prayer groups in school, these are all allowed because of the free exercise clause. So religion and prayer does exist in school. Schools just are supposed to keep themselves from becoming too entangled within the religion. So overall, the First Amendment is a very complex amendment to understand. There are a lot of things that it protects, and there are a lot of things that it does not protect. And as we've said about all of our freedoms, no freedom is absolute, and this is the case with our freedoms of speech, press, religion, assembly, and petition. Once again, I hope this helps you on your Constitution test, and I'll see you in class.